You ever have one of those moments where someone shows you exactly who they are, and the hardest part isn't the hurt? It's realizing you saw the signs the whole time and just talked yourself out of them? Yeah, that's the story. And trust me, by the time you get to the part where I sent that cease and desist letter, you're going to want to stand up and slow clap. I'm Rob, 34 male, 8th grade history teacher in a mid-sized city in Ohio. I coach the JV soccer team because nobody else would step up. I stay after school for kids who are falling behind, and I genuinely believe what I do matters. I'm not flashy about it. I drive a 6-year-old Tacoma. I grill on weekends. I save money the way my dad taught me, quietly without making a whole thing. I make $87,000 a year. In Ohio, that's a solid, comfortable living. I own my choices. I sleep fine at night. For 3 years, I thought Alina was a person I was going to spend my life with. I was wrong. And the way the whole thing came apart, and then the way she just could not leave it alone after, is still something I think about. Not with regret, with clarity. Alina and I met at a mutual friend's housewarming party in the summer of 2021. She was sharp, funny, and completely magnetic in a room full of people. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, making around $110,000 plus commissions. She was driven. I respected that. We clicked fast, and within 6 months we were serious. Within a year we were talking about the future, like it was already decided. She knew what I made from the very beginning. I never hid it, never inflated it, never apologized for it. I'm a teacher. That's not a secret. She knew it on date 1, date 10, and every date after that. I proposed in December of 2023. A ring I'd saved for deliberately. A moment I'd actually planned. She said yes, and she cried, and everything felt as real as anything I'd ever experienced. For about 4 months, it stayed real. Then the comments started. Small ones at first. Things like, my co-worker's husband just got promoted to VP. They're already building a custom home. Or, I saw this venue online. It's $40,000 just for the reception, but I mean it's once in a lifetime, right? I'd respond calmly. We'd talk about budget, and she'd seem to drop it. But the comments kept coming, and they started getting sharper. You could go back to school, get into administration. Principals make way more, you know. Have you ever thought about corporate training? Your communication skills would totally translate. I just feel like we'd have so many more options if your income situation was a little different. I heard what she was actually saying underneath all of it. I just kept hoping I was reading it wrong. I wasn't. In April of 2024, about 4 months after I proposed, Alina sat me down at her kitchen table and folded her hands on top of it like she was about to walk me through a quarterly earnings report. Rob, I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said. Okay, I said, I love you. I want to be really clear about that first. When someone opens with that, when they have to clarify up front that they love you before saying the next thing, what follows is never good, every single time. But I've been looking at our financial picture for the long term, and I don't think we're in the place we need to be for me to feel secure moving forward with the wedding. I kept my face neutral. What does that mean specifically? She took a breath. I think we should postpone until your income is in a better place. I need you to be making at least $150,000 a year before I'd feel comfortable actually getting married. The number landed in the air between us like something dropped from a great height. $150,000. As a classroom teacher in Ohio, I sat with it quietly for a second and ran the real numbers in my head. The average Ohio teacher's salary in a solid district caps out in the mid to high 80s. A principal, which requires additional credentials and usually years of work to even get considered for, starts around $95,000 in most Ohio districts. Superintendent roles, the ones that require graduate degrees, and surviving brutal district politics, might crack $130,000 in larger systems. $150,000 as a classroom teacher in Ohio isn't just a stretch. It's not a real Ohio teacher salary anywhere in the state. It was a bar set specifically to be out of reach. And she knew exactly what she was doing when she chose that number. $150,000. I said back to her, I know it's a significant jump, but I think if you're serious about our future, you've thought about this a lot. I have. So this is a firm condition, not a conversation. A condition. She hesitated just slightly. I think it's reasonable given what I need to feel secure. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said, I understand. She looked almost relieved, like she'd been bracing for a blow-up and was grateful it wasn't coming. She reached across the table and touched my hand. We're still engaged. I'm not ending anything. I just need us to... I understand, I said again. I stood up, walked to where my jacket was hanging by her front door, and reached into the inside pocket. I placed the ring on her kitchen table. She went completely still. Rob, I understand what you're telling me, I said, and my voice was steady because I meant every word of it. And I'm telling you something back. I'm not going to spend the next 2 or 3 years auditioning for a role I've already earned. I'm not going to chase a number you picked because you knew I couldn't reach it. And I'm not going to stay engaged to someone who thinks I need to financially qualify before I'm worth marrying. She stood up. You're completely overreacting right now. I don't think I am. I picked up my keys. Take care of yourself, Alina. I walked out, down 3 flights of stairs, sat in my truck in the parking lot for maybe 90 seconds. Then I drove home. That was it. That's how 3 years ended. No screaming, no drama, no long drawn-out scene. Just a ring on a kitchen table and a door closing quietly behind me. Now here's the part she definitely did not see coming. For the 18 months before any of that, before the proposal, before the ultimatum, before any of this, I had been saving aggressively and quietly. I max my 403b every single year. I keep my expenses well below what I earn. I had been pre-approved for a mortgage the previous November, before the proposal, because I'd been watching the housing market in my area for 2 years and waiting for the right moment. The right moment showed up 6 weeks after I walked out of her apartment. I bought a 3-bedroom Craftsman in a neighborhood I'd had my eye on since 2022. Solid bones, great street, a backyard with an actual oak tree that looked like it had been there longer than any of us. I closed on it in early June of 2024, paid $247,000, put 20% down, locked in a rate I was genuinely happy with. My name on the deed, nobody else's. I spent that summer doing work on it myself. Refinished the hardwood floors throughout the main level. Repainted the exterior a deep navy with white trim that turned out better than I even imagined. Put in raised garden beds in the backyard. My buddy Marcus came over most Saturdays, and we'd work on the house and then grill something and drink a couple beers on the back patio, and it was, no exaggeration, one of the best summers I'd had in my adult life. I didn't post anything about the breakup. Didn't post anything about Alina. I just started living my life and posting that. Progress photos of the house. The floors halfway done, then finished. The back patio coming together. Marcus and me looking exhausted and completely filthy and happy in front of the freshly painted front door with beers in our hands. Normal stuff. Real stuff. Cecilia came into the picture in September of 2024. She teaches 7th grade English at the middle school 2 blocks from mine. We'd crossed paths at district events over years, but never really had a real conversation. Then we ended up at the same table at a professional development workshop in late August. The kind of workshop that's technically about curriculum alignment, but is really just an excuse for teachers to drink bad coffee and quietly lose their minds together over standardized testing mandates. She made a comment under her breath about the presenter's slide deck that was so specific and so accurately savage that I actually choked on my coffee. Full on had to put the cup down. We talked through the rest of that workshop. Then a group of us went to lunch after. Then, 2 weeks later, I texted her to see if she wanted to grab dinner. Cecilia is grounded in a way that I recognized almost immediately because it mirrors something in how I move through the world too. She's been teaching for 8 years. She loves it the same way I love it, not in spite of the hard parts, but including them. She grew up in a blue-collar family in western Pennsylvania, and she has zero patience for pretension, and she genuinely believes a good meal cooked at home beats any overpriced restaurant with mood lighting and 6-week reservations. She came over to the house for the first time in October, stepped into the entryway, looked down at the floors, and said, "Did you do these yourself?" "Yeah," I said. "They're beautiful," she said, just like that, not making a big thing of it. Just a fact. I made dinner. We sat at my kitchen table and talked for 4 hours, and I'm not sure either of us noticed the time passing. By November, we were officially together. By December, she met Marcus and his wife, and the 4 of us were doing dinner every other week, and it felt completely without effort, like this was just how things were supposed to be. I posted a photo of us at a friend's Christmas party in mid-December, both of us laughing at something happening off to the side of the frame. My arm around her. She's not the kind of person who performs happiness for a camera. In that photo, she's just actually happy. You can see the difference when you know what to look for. That photo is what started everything back up again. I'd never blocked Alina. I didn't have a reason to, and honestly, I didn't think about her enough to bother. But sometime after that Christmas photo went live, she started paying attention again. December 28th, a text from Alina. First time I'd heard from her since I walked out in June. "Hey, I saw your post. You look happy. Can we talk?" I read it, put my phone back down, and kept watching the movie Cecilia. And I were halfway through. 3 days into January. Another one. "Rob, I've been doing a lot of reflecting. I think I made a mistake. I really miss you." Then, I was scared and I let my anxiety about money push me into making an ultimatum that wasn't fair to you. I see that now. Then, on New Year's Eve at 11:47 p.m., I still have feelings for you. I think we should talk in person. Please. I showed Cecilia all of them. She read through them without any particular expression, handed my phone back to me, and said, "What do you want to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Then nothing it is," she said, and went back to her glass of wine. That's the woman I'm with. I didn't respond to any of Alina's texts. Not one, which is apparently not a scenario she had prepared herself for, because in mid-January she showed up at my school. Not inside, she didn't go in, but she was standing in the parking lot when I came out at 4:15 after the final bell, positioned right next to her car, which was parked 2 spots down from my truck in a way that was clearly, obviously not coincidental. "Rob," she said. I stopped walking. "Alina, I just want 5 minutes. Please." I had soccer practice to get to, but I gave her the 5 minutes. I stood there in the January cold with my bag over my shoulder, and I listened. "I've been thinking about everything since June," she said. I think I was genuinely wrong. I let other people's expectations get into my head, my mom, some of my friends, and I let that turn into something that wasn't fair to what we had. That number I gave you, I know now that was impossible. I know you knew it then. I said. That stopped her cold. What? That number was built to be impossible. Alina, I'm a teacher in Ohio. You've known my salary for 3 years. You know what the ceiling looks like. You set a bar you knew I couldn't reach, so that I'd either change everything about my career to chase it, or I'd be the one who technically chose not to meet your standard. You didn't want to be the person who ended it. You were trying to engineer it. So I'd either transform myself into someone else or walk away on my own. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I bought a house, I said. I'm in a relationship with someone who's really good. I'm genuinely happy with where my life is. I'm not saying that to hurt you. I'm saying it so you understand that I'm not in a holding pattern. I haven't been waiting. She's a teacher, too. Alina said, and there was something in her voice right then, something quiet and sharp, that told me a lot. You're both teachers. Yeah, I said, we are. So you're just okay with staying there, in that income range, for the rest of your career. I'm exactly where I want to be, I said, always was. I said goodbye, and I walked to the gym to run practice. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. It was not remotely the end of it. In early February, my principal, Dr. Harmon, asked me to come by her office before first period. She had the specific expression that administrators get when they're about to say something they'd rather not. Professional but uncomfortable. I received a complaint, she said, about you from a parent. What kind of complaint? She shifted slightly. It was vague. It alleged that you've been behaving inappropriately, creating a hostile environment for students. It was submitted anonymously through the district's online portal. I went very still. That's not true. I know that, Rob. I've worked with you for 7 years, and I know exactly who you are. But the district requires me to run a formal review process regardless of the source. It should move quickly given your record. You have my full support. I just need to tell you directly. I walked out of her office and stood in the hallway for a long moment. Anonymous complaint. February. Filed maybe 3 weeks after I told Alina in the parking lot that I'd moved on and wasn't coming back. I had no proof it was her. Let me be straight about that. I had no proof. But the timeline was sitting in my chest like something heavy, and I've been around long enough to know that timing tells you things. The formal review ran for 3 weeks. Dr. Harmon interviewed students across multiple classes, reviewed records, spoke with colleagues and other staff. It concluded exactly the way it should have. No findings, no basis of complaint, case closed. It's documented in the district file as unsubstantiated. But those 3 weeks put real stress into my life. Stress I didn't earn. 3 weeks of second-guessing every interaction, of being hyper-aware of everything, of Cecilia holding my hand and saying, "You know exactly who you are. This is just noise." She said it every time I started spiraling a little, and every time it helped pull me back. When the review closed clean, I sat down and made a decision. I was going to be methodical about this. I went back through everything, and I documented the full timeline carefully. I had kept every text from Alina, going back to December 28th, screenshotted, backed up, dated. I logged the date of her parking lot visit. I noted the exact date Dr. Harmon called me in, and the date the anonymous complaint had been received by the district system. When you lay it all out in order, the pattern is hard to look away from. Contact in late December, repeated contact into January, in-person confrontation in mid-January, rejection, anonymous professional complaint in early February. I reached out to an attorney, a friend of a friend who works in employment and civil law. I laid out the full timeline and every piece of documentation I had. She told me that if the complaint could be traced back to Alina and proven to be intentionally and maliciously false, there was a plausible defamation claim and potentially a tortious interference with employment argument. She was also straight with me. Proving connection without a direct admission would be genuinely difficult. So what's the move right now? I asked her, document everything you have and keep documenting going forward, she said. And if she contacts you again, Ohio is a one-party consent state. You can legally record any conversation you're personally a part of without notifying the other person. I wrote that down. I didn't have to wait long before I had reason to use that information. In late March, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. Male voice, professional, said he'd been referred to me by a mutual contact and wanted to discuss a significant career opportunity. Left a callback number. I ran the number. Legitimate financial advising and corporate placement firm, real business. I called back out of pure curiosity. About 30 seconds into conversation, the actual pitch emerged. A recruiter working on behalf of a corporate training and development company was looking for candidates and had received my name and professional profile as someone who might be interested in transitioning out of teaching. The posted starting salary range was $130,000 to $145,000. Someone had submitted my professional information to a corporate recruiter without asking me, without telling me, and without my consent of any kind. Can you tell me who referred me? I asked, keeping my voice completely even. A pause. I'm not really able to share that. Got it, I said. I appreciate the call, but I'm not interested. I hung up and sat with it for a few minutes. This was a deliberate move. Someone had taken my professional profile and submitted it to a recruiter specifically targeting the salary range that Alina had set as her condition, trying to push me toward a career change so that she could potentially come back into my life and have it look like she'd been right all along. This was an accident. This was a coordinated attempt to manipulate my career without my knowledge. I called my attorney that same afternoon. We put together a formal cease and desist letter that went out in April of 2024. It was addressed to Alina directly, and it laid out the documented pattern. The unsolicited contact campaign from December through January, the in-person appearance of my workplace in January, the documented timeline surrounding the anonymous school complaint, and confirmed unauthorized submission of my professional information to a third-party recruiter. We were careful with the complaint. We noted the timeline rather than making a direct accusation. We couldn't fully back up yet. The letter demanded a complete stop to all contact, all interference in my professional life, and all involvement with my personal relationships, and it made clear that any future contact would be treated as grounds for civil action. She apparently called my attorney's office 3 times in the 48 hours after receiving it. 3 separate calls. A formal response came back through her own attorney, who she had to hire specifically to respond to this, acknowledging receipt of the letter and confirming that all contact would cease going forward. That cost her legal fees on both ends for a situation she had created completely by herself, chasing a man who had moved on and asked her, clearly directly in person, to let it go. She also posted something on her social media sometime in those weeks, vague enough to have no names in it, specific enough that anyone who knew the situation understood what it was about. Something along the lines of people who punish you for having standards and walk away from someone who was only trying to help them grow. It got 14 likes. The Christmas photo with Cecilia had gotten 340. Cecilia and I went to Maine in May of 2025, rented a small house right on the water for a week. We hiked, cooked real meals, read in chairs on the porch in the mornings. It rained for 2 full days, and we didn't care at all. On the second night, we had a fire going in the fire pit in the yard, and the water was doing its thing in the dark somewhere close by. And she looked over and said, "Are you actually happy?" "Yeah," I said. "I actually am." Not performing it? Not performing anything. She nodded and looked back at the fire, and that was the whole conversation. It didn't need to be more than that. I'm writing this out because someone I trust told me I should. I told them the whole thing over a long dinner recently, and they put their fork down and said, "People genuinely need to hear this one." So here it is. Someone who actually loves you doesn't build a threshold for it. They don't set financial conditions on your worth and then call a concern for the future. They don't dress up an ultimatum in the language of security and expect you to feel grateful for the honesty. Real security, the kind that actually holds a life together long term, isn't a salary number. It's 2 people who choose each other clearly and then do the work together with what they have. Alina wanted a husband who fit a specific financial profile. That's her right. But it's not love. It's a transaction. And when you name it clearly, when you pick your dignity up off the floor and walk out and actually build something real, some people simply cannot handle being left behind without a chase. I bought a house instead. I found someone who looked at floors I refinished with my own hands and just said they were beautiful, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I'm 34 years old, and I teach history, and I coach soccer. I sleep fine every single night. That was always enough. She just wasn't the right person to see it. If this story hit different for you, subscribe. Because if you stuck around through a cease and desist letter and a corporate recruiter plot twist, you clearly have excellent taste, and I've got more where this came from.